All right, I think given the circumstances, the only way to start an interview like this is just with how are you feeling and what have you been up to?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm just obviously probably a little anxious and bored like everybody, but I try to keep busy around the house as much as I can and try to get outside a little bit and do some stuff outside, around my place. Spend time with the kids. I get it's obviously for me. I'm away from them most of the season. They're here and I'm in St. Louis, so I get some good home time with the kids and the family, which is nice.
That's definitely nice. I think we're all trying to keep busy at this point. It's been almost 3 weeks since the NHL hit the pause button on the season. Not really sure if or when it will resume. How exactly do you go about coaching your players during this time?
Well, there's not much coaching going on. We all try to keep in contact with them, whether it's myself, the coaching staff, Doug Armstrong. We reach out to our players, just try to keep in contact with them. Our strength coach, will send them workouts and things they can do at home. Try to keep in shape the best they can, and just checking in on their families and the players, making sure they're feeling healthy and doing okay. I mean, that's it. There's no coaching going on.
Yeah.
It's all about, staying healthy and trying to stay in the best shape you can.
So you have guys that are trying to stay in shape. Now, let's say that a few months down the line, play resumes. How long do you think it would take for your team to be ready to play the game?
That's a good question. These guys are great athletes, and to be honest with you, I would say a good week of skating and conditioning work, I think they'd be probably in good enough shape to get going again. It's probably not enough time, but they would be able to do it. They're, like I said, they're great athletes. They keep themselves in great shape. So that's a big part of it, obviously, what they do at home and their eating and all that kind of stuff. So I'd say a good week of skating and practicing, they'd be ready to go.
That's not too bad. That's pretty quick. There is a school of thought that a break in the action could actually possibly benefit a team like yours, a team that played so much hockey last year into June, 7 games in the Stanley Cup final. You also play this heavy brand of hockey. Do you buy into that notion that a break in action could be a good
injury-wise, I would say that with Tarasenko and, a couple other guys, it would definitely helps them get, more ready, heal better. It'll be 100% when they get back. I'm not sure the break in action does anything really, to be honest with you. I thought we were playing pretty good hockey going into the break. Our guys seem fine. Really all year, I never really had an issue with our team with being tired or just, too much, like too much hockey almost. Like there was a lot of hockey last year, obviously. And then coming into this year, we had 8 or 9 games in training camp and exhibition, then right into the season. But, our guys seem good all year long. So I don't know if a break like this does us any good or not, to be honest with you.
Speaking of Tarasenko, been out since late October with that shoulder injury. What can you tell us about his status?
Well, he's ready to go. I mean, he was before we got shut down, he was probably going to be back that week. He would have been back that week to play. So he was doing really well. He did a great job of rehab and taking care of himself and being ready to go. I was really impressed by what he did over this course of staying in great shape and rehabbing and doing all the right things. He did a great job, really good job. And the staff did a great job, training staff and the people that were training them and stuff and all that. They did a real good job.
You mentioned how well your team was playing before the break. Currently the 1 seed in the West, a couple points up on Colorado, although they do have a game in hand. Now, if and when play resumes, do you want to see the regular season completed? We've heard from players who have different schools of thought on this. I know Alexander Ovechkin said, let's just go to the playoffs at this point, as you might expect a veteran player to say. How would you want it to play out?
Yeah, it's a tough question because there's some teams that are right in a bubble that, there's 10 games left or so that, they could have a good opportunity to get into the playoffs, or they could just maybe start the playoffs and add a few more teams and run it that way somehow. It's a tough question, to be honest with you. I think for our team, just speaking for me from a selfish standpoint, I would just like to start playoffs because we're in the playoffs and we're ready to go. But from other team standpoint, that doesn't seem fair either.
No, it's a difficult question. You're right. It's in many ways kind of a loaded question because teams haven't even played the same amount of games so far.
Yeah.
Obviously, as you well know, extremely hard to win the Stanley Cup. A lot of people say harder still than to repeat. Why do you believe that your team is a team that is built to be able to do that?
Well, I think, I couldn't answer that question at the beginning of the year because I really didn't know what was going to happen this year. I was really impressed by our team at training camp, the way they came in, the shape they came in, the spirit we had right away. To start the season and everything that went on. I was pretty impressed by that. They seemed really good. They seemed like they wanted to repeat. They were hungry to repeat. That's a big thing for me. And I thought it carried on throughout the season. So we have as good a shot as anybody. You get in the playoffs, you give yourself a chance. That's the whole thing. You got to get some bounces. Things got to go your way. So I don't look at it any different than last year, to be honest with you. I think that you get in there and you got to be hungry. You got to play hard. You got to be, for our team, playing hard, playing a physical brand of hockey. We can do that. That's playoff hockey, in my opinion. We're pretty good at it. That's our style. So it suits us, the playoffs. I think our best hockey was yet to come, to be honest with you. I think it was coming. So, I think that going back even last year to this year, I don't see a whole lot of difference going into the playoffs. And again, you do have to get bounces to keep advancing for sure.
Well, let's go back to last season. Late November, the Blues, they fire Mike Yeo. You get promoted to interim head coach. What did you immediately think of your team?
Well, it was a good team, good players. I think there was a lot of good players. We added 3 or 4 new faces to that team that we're still trying to fit in. Where they belonged, roles, things like that. I think there was a mixed feeling there with a lot of players where they fit in their roles. And I think once we got that straightened out and the locker room a little bit straightened out and everybody really pulling on the same rope, we really started to play good hockey. Now, it took some time. We didn't win enough games, and you're playing good hockey, you're finding ways to lose rather than finding ways to win. And Bennington came in and really added a big confidence to our team. That shutout in Philly, guys were pretty good. And then wins the next game. I mean, you start feeling pretty good about yourself. When you have a goaltender that is playing really well in front of your team and doing what he needs to do, and his aggressive style suits our style of play, out of the net. And I think that really, I believe in that. I'm a big believer in your goaltender, playing to your style of play. We're an aggressive team. And we just rolled. And, when you put in an 11-game winning streak, we lost that game in Dallas to end that streak, but we fired right up again and started winning again. I was like, got a pretty good team. We have an opportunity to do something this year.
Bennington was such a spectacular story, but a big part of your team, and it's been written about and been talked about, is the idea of these guys just buying in. You mentioned things didn't get better immediately. You go back to early December, Coyotes crushed your team 6-0. Now, Rick Tocchet tells a story that you two guys went out for beers and you were telling him that you saw something. You thought your team was good enough if they would just buy in. When did that buy-in happen?
We went on and it wasn't long after that. We went on a West Coast trip out in Canada, Edmonton. I think I can't remember the dates of what teams we play. Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary with the 3 games. And I think we won 2 out of 3. I know we lost in Vancouver, but I thought it was the best hockey I've seen our team play. And I thought that we were really coming together there. And then that was a Christmas break after that and then start up again. But I thought at that road trip, I felt our team was really on board, playing for each other, doing the right things, really starting to come together. And
go ahead.
You got to keep stringing, a lot of wins together, obviously, because of the situation we're in. But we did do that. And guys, that's a credit to our players that really, never stopped rolling from January 1st on. Just didn't. They just kept going and going and going. We're dialed right in for a long time.
Thinking that you have a good team and thinking that you have a winning team is, as you know, very different than thinking that you have a team that can win the whole thing and win the Stanley Cup. You played for almost 2 decades. You played for some pretty darn good clubs in your time. You never won the cup. Was there a point maybe late in the regular season or during the postseason where you allowed yourself to think, my God, this is a team, we could win the whole thing?
It sounds like, you're probably not going to believe me, but I never look past the game. I really don't. I don't let myself do it during the regular season either. I'm a game-to-game guy the whole season. I don't look ahead 5-game segments. I don't do any of that stuff. And that goes for the playoffs. I mean, to be honest with you, we'd win a series and we'd be right into looking at the next opponent and looking at game one, and that's it. I mean, and just playing. I think when you're in the Stanley Cup Finals, after game one against Boston, I knew we could play with them. Now, they're a very good team. Don't get me wrong. And they're a deep team. They got great players that have won cups. They know how to win. We didn't know how to win, really. They have guys that did win cups. And, they're great goaltending in net. They're tough. They're going to be tough. But I knew after game one we could play with them. And that was important, just to believe that and think that.
Did you play for any teams where you allowed yourself to think or believe that this team was going to win the Stanley Cup?
Well, I mean, I played on some real good Flyer team. I was part of the '87 final, and I was just a rookie. I really wasn't thinking that way, but that was a very good team. You lose in 7 games to the Edmonton Oilers. That Oilers team was probably as good as hockey team as I've ever seen in my life, and we take them to 7 games. The game could have went either way. That's how close it is. And even the Washington, we went to the finals. I actually thought, we might win the cup, and we're going against the Detroit Red Wings, who are loaded, and they're a great team. The first 2 games were tight. If they go maybe a different way, we win one of them. Even what if you win the first? Like, they were that close to games, that changes everything. But we lost the first 2 games, and we didn't have enough guys in our team that believed they could come back. And you really have to have that belief and that will. And we just didn't have enough of it, and that was a great team, Detroit. But, I've been on teams where I think we could win. You just got to play good enough, and you got to get some bounces to go your way. That's a big part of it. The league is so tight and it's so good, and every team is so good. I think the NHL has done a fabulous job of, just equalizing everything out, night in and night out. Anybody can beat anybody.
You fought your way to get in the league, literally, really, at this point. You poured blood and sweat into a very long playing career. You do get your first head coaching job with the Flyers. You get fired from that job. Then you win the whole thing as an interim head coach. That moment, you're on the ice. You hoist the Stanley Cup above your head. What is going through your mind?
Just happiness, really. I mean, relief too. Like, when that horn went, we won, I was relieved, to be honest with you. Like, we did it, and it was just more for me, it was relief. And then, obviously I was obviously excited and happy, really happy for our players more than anything. And the organization, for me, that organization's been a great organization for a long time. And when you get the first cup, it's pretty special. And just our players, they get all the credit because they deserve it. They played their butts off, and they dedicated, 2 straight months of, playoff hockey to winning. And they deserve all the credit. And I was really happy for them. I was proud of our guys, really proud of our players.
It's such a great moment for the city of St. Louis. And of course, a great moment for you comes later, because after that, you get the whole day with the cup. And you bring Calapoo, Alberta, where you grew up. For people who have never been there, how would you describe Calapoo?
Well, I mean, it's a very tiny town. Like, in the town itself, there's 85 people that live there. That's it. It's, you got some ball diamonds, you got a hockey rink, a church, and a general store, and that's it. I mean, you're out of the town in 15 seconds if you drive through it. It's like that small. but it was like a pretty impressive day. I'll tell you, I brought the cup to the arena for three and a half hours of people to come take pictures. There was 3,000 people lined up to come and take a picture with the Stanley Cup, which was like, I was blown away. And then to bring it back to where I grew up on our farm and have a party with, all my relatives and friends and stuff. And I was really happy for my dad and my uncles, all them guys that really, were huge hockey fans and still are today. They live and bleed hockey all the time. It's all they talk about and watch, even though they're Oiler fans. But anyways, and Blues. But, see those guys enjoy the day with the cup and people like that. It was a lot of fun, really a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think they're probably Blues fans at this point.
Yeah, look, they still cheer for the Oilers, though. I know that for a fact.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe there's a playoff meeting in the future. And
yeah.
You have a town divided there. The Canadian counterparts to Native Americans called First Nations, you're part Cree. First time that someone of First Nations descent coached a team to the Stanley Cup. What did that significance mean to you?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And the chief of a reserve down the road, Alexander's the reserve, he came by and did a little ceremony. They gave me a nice, like a little statue thing, and it was great to see them show up and do that. I grew up with a lot of those guys and played a lot of hockey and baseball with them, and so did my dad. So they're good friends, and to see the chief show up like that and do a little ceremony was pretty cool, and everybody enjoyed that too. So, but it means a lot. I mean, I'm proud of that, and to be able to do that is pretty cool.
You mentioned town of 85 people. So if you grow up there, I think at this point, it probably means you're a long shot to make it right from the start. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a hard road. At what point did you realize I've got to fight to make it?
I would say I was 16. I went away from home and I played junior A hockey in Williams Lake, British Columbia. And I think that's when I realized, what I was probably to keep playing hockey and to keep pursuing a career in hockey down the road. I was going to have to be, a tough physical player that's probably going to have to drop his gloves and get after it. I had a coach named John Van Horlick there that really took me under his wing and taught me everything, and really paved the path for me down the road, which was great to have a guy like that really looked after me, to be honest with you. And to this day, he came to my cup party and was around, and I talk to him to this day, and great guy. So I think having him teach me the ropes and introduce me to that kind of hockey and play really helped me. And I went on. I played 2 years in New Westminster Bruins, and then a year in Medicine Hat, and I signed a contract with the Philadelphia Flyers. I mean, and I had to obviously drop your gloves and fight. I put some numbers up, scored some goals in junior hockey, like everybody does. Though most kids and players that play in junior score a little bit and put some numbers up, but that was never going to be, what I was going to do in the NHL.
Were you a good fighter right away in those early days?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with all that kind of stuff too, off the ice, growing up where I grew up, I had a lot of cousins and things like that. You're kind of getting involved quite a bit as a kid, but I was actually pretty comfortable with it, to be honest with you. And I think it just kind of came more natural to me than anything. You gotta wanna do it, and you gotta know that it's your job to do it, and you're okay with doing it. Like, you're gonna get punched, you're gonna get beat up at times. It's not gonna go your way, and those are the kind of things where you gotta move on from it, because that's gonna be part of it. You're not gonna win every fight. You're not gonna do well all the time, and you gotta just deal with it.
You mentioned you got to be okay with it. You got to accept it. I talked to Jonesy about this, and he mentioned that throughout his career, especially with the way Jonesy is and the way he played, his antics would lead to teammates getting into fights. And not all of his teammates were exactly thrilled with that all the time. There were guys who were down on him during certain situations because he got them into scraps. He said that was never the case with you. He said that you loved it. Would you say you loved fighting?
No, I wouldn't say that, but I I actually enjoyed the whole, I guess process of it. Like, and a guy like Keith Jones, Dale Hunter and I played together for a number of years. And, when you play with players like that, they're going to stir stuff up and you're going to have to get involved. And, we had a good time with it, to be honest with you. You got to enjoy it. You got to deal, yeah, you're going to get some lumps and bruises and things are going to happen here and there. I never got hurt that bad ever. Black eye here and there or whatever, but bloody nose, big deal. And we always chuckled about it after and had a good time with it. And I think that's a big part of it all, even playing with Rick Tocchet in Philadelphia, same thing, had a guy like that with me by my side, and we had a good time with it all. It's part of it, you can't be upset about it all the time because it's too much stress then,
Well, you mentioned that you broke in with the Flyers, and that's 1987. Take you back to March 22nd, 1987. You're making your debut with the Flyers. You don't exactly tiptoe into the experience. 26 penalty minutes in that game, 2 fighting majors. Do you remember who you fought?
I think I fought a guy named Dan Frawley. Could have been his name. Was one of the fights. I do remember.
William Frawley? Pittsburgh?
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do remember the game, though. And I actually, I went in there and I wanted to make a statement right away. I didn't want to go back to the minors. I was up there and, I had Mike Keenan as a coach and, I knew that you had to do something to, get his eye and, so that's what I did. That's just, I didn't want to go back down to the minors.
242 career fights. Look, I'm sure there were a number of players who, during their career, knew that they were taking on your team and said, I may have to drop the gloves with Berube tonight. I'm dreading this. I'm not looking forward to it. Were there a few guys that you remember, you're like, oh, here we go. I may have to mix it up with this guy tonight. This is
yeah, there's a lot of guys. Yeah, there's a lot of guys. There was somebody all the time on every team pretty much. Like there's always guys, but looking back at the late Bob Probert, that team with Detroit was a pretty scary team with Joey Kosher on there, going into that rink or they're coming into our barn. I had a lot of fights with those guys, and it's not always fun. It was you go into St. Louis and got Chase and Twister, and every team had a couple guys. I was fortunate too. I had Dave Brown on my team, which was great because Brownie was tough and great guy and really helped me out in my career too with that part of it. Back in the day going into Boston, they had a lot of guys. It was always a tough building to go into. A guy like Cam Neely and, Lyndon Byers, Jay Miller. It was tough hockey. There was always some physical guys, and there was always guys in every team that you probably were going to have to get involved with.
We've shown the video quite a few times of when Jonesy gets into a scrap. You're on the bench, you're sitting there nodding, smiling at him, but you're giving that big grin without the 2 front teeth. And I have to ask, when did those 2 front teeth get knocked out? How did that happen? And I assume it happened more than once, but let's go with the first one. When did it first happen?
Well, I lost my teeth in Williams Lake, British Columbia. My first place, I went and played junior A hockey. So I lost them back then. Okay.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
I had to know because we show that video, and that smile looking at Jonesy.
Well, I gave Jonesy the thumbs up there. He doesn't fight. He didn't fight too much. So when he got in the fight, and, I had to give him a thumbs up to make him feel good.
That's good. That's good. I look back at 24 fights in 1990-91. Now, if you look back, that's more than every team other than Anaheim had this season. The game has obviously changed. What do you feel? How do you feel about fighting being phased out of the game at this point?
It doesn't bother me, to be honest with you. The game is great in my opinion. There's still some fights here and there, but they're more out of emotion or, a player just, they're mad at each other or something. So they fight, which is fine. I don't believe the stage fighting and things like that should be it's not part of the game anymore. And it never will be again. The game's in a great spot. I think there's still intimidation with the physical play. I believe, we go into Vegas and we're playing them, and Ryan Reeves is on the other team. He's a physical player that can skate and get there. He's a very effective player, but he doesn't need to fight to intimidate. He's intimidating with his body and his physical play and going to the net hard and things like that. And he does a great job of it. So, it's a great game right the way it is, I believe, and I don't think that it should go any differently.
I'm curious what you think about this. I mean, you've now established yourself. You're a Stanley Cup winning coach. Do you think being an enforcer at all hurt you when you were trying to climb the ladder to become an NHL head coach?
That's a good question. No, that's probably not a question to ask me, because I don't think that way. I wouldn't know why anybody would think that way. I know a ton of enforcers that I played against over the years, and they're very intelligent hockey guys. Just because they have to do that to play, because they didn't have the skill level or the talent to score goals or play the game the other way. They have to do it a certain way to play, and that's what they did. I mean, that doesn't mean they don't know the game. That's really not a good question for me, I would guess.
Yeah.
I guess it could be for other people, but you got to pay your dues. I mean, it's sometimes a long process to get there. And, I was with one organization for a long time, the Flyers, as, coaching their minor league team, being an assistant in the NHL with the Flyers. And I really didn't know a lot of people outside of Philly, to be honest with you, in the game. And you got to know people, you really got to know GMs. They got to know you. They got to trust you, because it's a big decision to be a head coach in the NHL for a GM to give a guy a head job. It's a big decision. So that could have been why it took me a while too.
Yeah. Well, and you got that. I mean, you got your first shot, 2013-14 season early on, part ways with Peter Laviolette. You take over, you take the team to the playoffs. The next year, the team takes a step back. They miss the postseason, and then you were fired. Did you feel like it was too quick of an axe? Are there things from that you feel like you've changed and that you moved on from?
I moved on from it right away. I didn't really dwell on being fired. I was like, they're people make decisions and go the other way. All I know is if you don't make a playoffs in this league, you could get fired. It doesn't matter. That's the league, and they expect you to win. They expect you to make the playoffs no matter what. We didn't make the playoffs, so there was obviously a good opportunity that I was going to get fired, and I did. Who knows why exactly? I don't know why. Nobody knows why, and it's really not important anymore, to be honest with you. I moved on from it. I got another opportunity. Went out there and did some scouting for Doug Armstrong, formed a relationship with him, and here I am today. I mean, it is about relationships and meeting people and get to know people. I think that's a big part of it. And I had a lot of people in my corner too that helped me, Paul Holmgren here, Bobby Clark, always been in my corner, Ken Hitchcock, Johnny Stevens. I got a lot of good people in my corner that I learned the game from a playing standpoint and a coaching standpoint.
Well, that's interesting because let's talk about some of those guys. I mean, who would you say are your biggest influences in terms of being a head coach?
Well, I mean, when I broke into coaching, John Stevens was my first guy I worked for. He was the head coach of the Philadelphia Phantoms. And really, Johnny taught me everything about coaching from a system standpoint and all that. And I worked a number of years with him and really learned a ton from him. Ken Hitchcock was right down the hallway as a coach of the Flyers. And Hitch and I go back a long way. Junior hockey, I played for him a little bit. He coached me a little bit in the pros. So I've known Hitch a long time. Two different people, two different styles. So I had a good combination of different personalities and coaching styles that I, just took information from. And also coaching with Peter Laviolette, he brought in a whole different perspective to the game that I still, to this day, use a lot of his stuff that he taught me, that I learned from him with, aggressive play and what he does with his defense and things like that. So Lavi was great too. So I got a lot of different ideas about, coaching and things like that. I played for Daryl Sutter at the end of my career. And really, when you're an older player like that and your career's over, and my career was over when he took over, and it was just a matter of time till the season ended, and then I was done playing hockey. I really dialed into listening to him and watching him closely, and I really enjoyed a lot of things he did. Still use a lot of his things that I saw him do.
How would you describe, because you're taking from so many different areas and you're trying to form your own style.
Yeah.
Describe your coaching philosophy now.
Well, I think our team, I'm coaching how our team needs to play. I think you can change a little bit your coaching philosophies on the style of team you have. But I want to play aggressive hockey. I want to be a hard forechecking team, be a physical team, but also a smart team. We talk in terms of stick on puck all the time, things like that, play good, tight defense. I don't like to give anybody time and space out there with or without the puck. And that's kind of our mindset, is being aggressive all over the ice.
You're trying to communicate with younger players. How important is it, not just to be straightforward, but to constantly be honest?
Well, yeah, I don't know any other way, to be honest with you, but I think players, young players want to know why. That's the biggest thing. Why do I got to do that? Why am I doing this? Why are we doing that? So, I try to be, I'm honest with them and tell them why. And, they got to understand that it's not about them, it's about the team. And it takes time for young guys to really understand that, because their whole young career and junior career, it's been all about them. Whether, they got people telling them how great they are, this, that. And I'm not trying to bring them down. They are good players, but sometimes you got to take a step back and you got to understand the situation, and the team needs to come first. That's our mindset, and with the St. Louis Blues, and it takes a little time to instill that in them.
Spoken to a few people, and they echo that. I asked them, why do you think the Blues system works? Why do you think these players respond to Craig Berube? And what exactly are they buying into? And the word they keep coming back with is unselfish. Do you think that's the foundation for your team's success?
Well, it is, because we're asking a lot of guys to, do different things that they're not used to doing. I go back to last year, and I went to Alexander Steen, who's, one of the best Blues of all time player, two-way hockey player, scored lots of goals. But, everybody, he got a little, obviously a little bit older in his career, but was still an effective player, power play, whatever he did. So I went to him and I said, listen, our fourth line, and I don't even like to use fourth line, third line, first line, second line. I really don't like to use those terms. Needs an identity. And I'm going to put you with those two guys. And he goes, no problem. Walked away. And that was the conversation. And that line was probably a big reason we won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. Craig, I really appreciate your time. Can't wait to see you back out there coaching, see the players back on the ice. Love watching your team play. So best to you. Stay well.
Yeah, you too. And thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Okay. Stay safe and good luck. Okay. Take care.
Thanks, Craig.